Hi, everyone. Today we are starting a series of interviews with futurists and foresight practitioners from all around the world. And the very first one is with my friend Tom Meyers. Tom is a futurist, a writer, a public speaker, and an osteopath, and he's based in Belgium. He wrote a book called Futurize Yourself that I'm sure is going to be very inspiring for a lot of you, as it was for me. Right now, he's preparing a second book, and he's going to talk about it in our interview. If you have any comments, please just let us know here in our social media or directly in our website, universidaddelfuturo.net. I hope you enjoyed this interview and see you very soon.
Hi everyone, how you doing? I hope you're doing very good. And this is one of the first interviews we're doing here for the Universidad del Futuro. This is the very first one actually, and I'm very glad that the first one is with my friend here, Tom Meyers. Hi Tom, how you doing?
Hi, Mauricio. I'm doing very well, very excited, and thank you very much for having me. Yeah, inspire people on your end of the world because I'm in Brussels, Belgium,
I know,
thousands of kilometers away from you.
I know, and that's something I like very much, because I know that you're gonna talk to us of a lot of things, a lot of interesting things you have done, and why future has become so important in your life. And I think that's very good to hear for everybody here on this side of the world. And first of all, I want to ask you, Tom. I really appreciate the fact that you are here, and thank you very much again. I have said that a lot of times before, but you're an osteopath, you are a public speaker, you're a writer, you're a futurist, you're a lot of things, Tom. But why don't you tell us first, who's Tom Meyers?
Well, they call me Tom Tom the Health Navigator. I'm what they call a multi-potentialite. So I can do many things, and I'm good at many things. And I haven't specialized in anything really, but that's okay. These days multi-potentialites, they are the future. So, but yeah, where to start? I'm 50. Let's say let's start with that one. 50 years old, so give me some credit. But life, what I am today wasn't what I was about 21 years ago. 21 years ago, I was running a short deli, which was I selling charcuterie and cheese. And that also was not really my place. So it was, my conversion was so around the age of 29. And today, and what we're going to talk about is probably also about that journey in our interview or into what we're going to share today. But who I am today is somebody that feels that he wants to share his story, share how the future is something that we can use to the benefit of our health, our well-being, to the many challenges that we are facing currently in the world, including COVID, climate change, the influence of technology on our lives. Instead of looking to the past to go forward, to really go forward from the future or with the future in mind. And that is something that I really want to share today. And I think that's my main activity, even as an osteopath and body-centered stress coach, which is a manual therapist helping people with neck, back, and shoulder pains or depression or change. Even there, I feel that we must have a futurist mindset because at the end, at the end of the day, it comes all to how do you want to feel in a fast-changing world? How do you want to feel on an ideal day? you have to know how. We know that you have to define that word, feeling. How do I want to feel? And then when you know that word, you can start to implement in your decisions, choices, and actions, actually things that make you feel that way. So even from a health perspective, being a futurist or having a futurist mindset, it's so essential. But it seems that we never have asked the question, or that we haven't really dared to look too much ahead. And if that's cultural, or is that because, yeah, we've come from a long period of surviving in the moment. But in a lot of parts of the world, this is still the case. But for us people that are in a situation where we have a roof over our head, we know where our food is coming from, or at least we can buy it, we have to start looking a little bit further ahead, because the future is coming very fast. And if we are not preparing or anticipating for the changes that are coming, it will impact us not only on the individual level, but also on the societal level, into something that is going to create a lot of stress, a lot of discomfort. And I believe that by looking forward, by anticipating and preventing some of these things to happen, but also how to become more resilient for the changes that are going to happen, that we can do a lot of good today and feel it today. Because that is something what is often misunderstood, is that when we talk about the future is of course far away, but we can feel it and do something that changes our lives today. So it's not delayed gratification. It's not, you need to prevent things and you need to stop doing this and that because of the future. No, you can have a positive influences on your daily life by thinking as a futurist, by thinking ahead. And actually, I feel that is sometimes the challenge that we have, or that I have in explaining this, that it's not necessarily all about the future. It's actually about today, but for today, tomorrow, the day after, 5 years time, 10 years time. And I've created, and we create that from a vision that we want to, or a preferred future that we want to achieve.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the main concepts that we are working here in Foresight and Futures, the people that like both of us that work with this. I think this is one of the main concepts, the fact that that we have to work the future now in the present, because actually there's no distinction between present and future. But I would like to ask you, Tom, how did you come up with this? How did you come closer to futures and foresights and all this kind of concepts that I understand you were not very related to before? So how did it happen?
Yeah, it was while writing my book, Futurize, well, which got the title Futurize Yourself. I think the first title was something, Who is Tom Tom? But of course, that was, just like a title, and the content from how did I get here? I was standing on a stage in Italy giving a presentation, and I thought, how did I get here from this depressed, suicidal person, 14 years earlier at that stage? And when I opened my shop, I thought it was the greatest idea. That was an opportunity that was handed to me by a friend. And after years of traveling around the world and working in hotels and restaurants as a waiter or wine waiter on a cruise ship, I was finally going to settle. And this was the opportunity that would, give me the standing in the community. I would, finally make it in this world. And of course, 2 months later, it just didn't turn out to be that way. It was a shattered dream. I'm really bringing it into the essence here because it's a long story. But it was one, the local pharmacist, Anna Marie, she was the first person I really confided in my troubles. We've confided in that, I was actually having a depression and that I was not feeling very well and that I had some really dark thoughts.
Mm.
And it was she who told me to go and see this astrologer coach. And I said, from astrologer, whatever, that's for desperate people. Who goes to that anyway? I was desperate enough and I went. And it was nothing that what I expected in the first place. It's not about divination or prediction about the future. No, it was just about somebody who we call today a life coach, who helped me revisit my past and shed a new light on it. Then she gave me questions to find my potential that I was born with. And then another question to imagine how an ideal day would look like in 10 years' time. And that's when the futurist woke up in me. So I didn't really know it at the time. I only started to see the future thinking part of that when I was writing my book, because before writing my book in 2000, or when it was published in 2018, I had never heard of something like futurists. I had not heard about this before. But looking into the concepts, and at that moment, it was that futurists were posting things on Facebook and I got to see them, and some connections were posting about this strange guy in Switzerland called Gerd Leonhardt. And I stumbled upon one of his videos and I thought, my God, he's talking about the fast changing world. And I thought, and here I am talking about a book about how to find your potential. Has this still value into this fast changing world? It was like I nearly had a trauma of thinking that my book had no value into this fast changing world. So I went looking and reading, and I went from one book to the other. I read his book, Humanity versus Technology. Mm-hmm. And it was a revelation to me, to see these concepts. And then I was looking at my book and what I had written, and I actually had written these concepts from my own personal experience without knowing that there were concepts in the first place.
Right, yeah.
So it was like, no, my book has value. It's actually a practical futurist book. And this is how I came to be fascinated. I had nearly 20 years of experience in being a futurist. I didn't know. And it's also in the practical elements, right? Because many of the known futurists are conceptualists. They are abstract thinkers about the future. My future is practical. Just like a sportsman. Yeah, a sportsman always lives towards the next game, the next Olympics, the next European championships. They're always focused on the future. So athletes are the perfect futurists because all their decisions, their choices, and their actions are built towards a realization, their dream to get where they want to be in the future. Isn't that fantastic? Then how you start to see futurism as something that is in our daily lives. And that got me so passionate about it, Maurizio, to really see that these concepts, if you go deeper into that and you start using them and you start more using them forward instead of just looking back always, oh yeah, that was interesting, from there to here. But then you start projecting them forward and using them. How lives, in any case, my life became more meaningful, purposeful. I became happier. I became more fulfilled. Also because I based my future on my potential. I didn't know before my shot, before I was asked that there was a therapist in me. But when I was asked to question myself, it was obvious that there was a therapist in me. It was obvious that there was a researcher in me, somebody who likes to communicate and teach and travel and explore. That was always being part of me, but I didn't know. I had never defined it. I had never really come across that. But once I knew, and I imagined the future in 10 years' time, I want to be a therapist who's developed his own approach, who written a book about it, and he's asked around the world to give presentations and workshops, as we're doing now. This is a presentation, international, it's global. Once I set that future out to me, out there, and I made it my prime objective, and all my decisions, choices, and actions were aligned with that. You know, it came true. It's like I fulfilled my potential. I evolved on purpose because I felt that this is what is in me. Then I have all the qualities needed to make that into a reality. And if I make that into a reality, I could imagine, because I'm born with these talents, with this potential, that my life, which had been meaningless, would become meaningful. And that from somebody that was good for nothing, I could be good at something.
Right.
And that is just, for me, the wow factor that I want to share.
And you talk a lot about this in your book that I think is great. And I invite everybody to get Tom's book, because Futurize Yourself is really, really a great story, because it's the story of your life. And I think that's really important, because you wanted to share all you felt in your life since you were a teenager, basically since you were a kid, and how you found a lot of problems like we all have in our lives, but how did you go out from those problems just when you focused on your future? And I think that's really important, and that's great that once you realize that future was really important, and especially something you talk a lot about in your book is purpose in life, how you discovered that purpose. And once you discovered that purpose, you realized everything that was dark before, now it could be different, it could be really bright. And I think that's amazing, and I think that's one of the most important parts of the whole book.
Yeah, and definitely the part is about, if purpose hasn't found you, which it rarely does,
Yeah,
give your life a purpose, on purpose, based on your potential. You will see that when it's based on your potential, you will be very close to your purpose of life in any case. And a lot of people are here, yes, I haven't found my purpose yet. And then I say, have you looked, have you asked yourself the right questions? The questions are in my book. They're explained as I received them and how I found them. But also, it's not necessarily the good thing to wait and sit back. And it's like for that buzz of purpose to come and put itself in front of your door, say, here you are, here is your purpose. It doesn't happen like that. Most people need to work for it, need to question themselves, need deep questions about who they are, what their beliefs are, and also what brings them value, gives them energy, what other people are asking from them, what their aspirations are. And all of this together, if you filter it down, brings you closer to your purpose or your potential, that you can imagine your future to be like. So that purpose, that aim, you put it out there. And then when you start Then you start walking, and then you get confirmed, this is it. Or you say from you know, there is still something that is not completely right, so that you can slowly and surely but adapt yourself and get closer to that purpose along the way. And once you find it all, it still will continue to evolve because it doesn't stop, of course. Purpose is not something that is finite. Thank God for that, it's not finite. It would be boring, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to go further to these questions you talk about. You talk about this in your book, the 3 questions. What were those 3 questions, Tom?
Okay, let me find a way to give you those questions easily. Just hang on a moment. Look at this. What about that?
Great. That's
can
perfect.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. These are the 3 questions that I received. So, Elena, the coach, asked me, describe me what you admire in others. You know, for me, that was something like, I was good for nothing. My friends were always better than me. And she wanted to know in what they were better. I needed to describe that, what I admired in them. Oh, he is so good in this, and I'm just nothing. And what I saw was that my friends were great communicators, great orators, walking dictionaries, the best jokes at the right time, while my jokes would follow 5 days later. Then I had a good answer. But of course, it was too late by then. Mm-hmm. And I really admired them about them. And the second question she gave me was, what do people admire in you? In the sense that, you know, you have your friends and you have you. What do people come to you and don't go to your friends? What do you attract? And that was not very easy. That was not very easy to respond to, because I felt I was good for nothing. But one of the things that I wrote down at the time was, I was working in administration at times, or even in the hotels that I worked at. They always asked me when the photocopier didn't work. And why? Because they had some kind of a notion that if I came close to that photocopier, it would work again. I would do something with it and it would work again. And more than 50% of the time, it did work again. I have no idea how I did it. They would be there for an hour doing things, it would not work. I come there 1 minute and boom, it works again. I haven't done anything with that skill because I don't know what it is, but that's how you answer these questions. Yeah. And it's also, you go a little bit further, when I put my hands on people, when I was listening to other people. So imagine, you have your auntie sitting around the table talking, and you're going to listen in. So what do? You stand behind them. I put my hands on their shoulders, and automatically my hands start massaging, their neck and their shoulders. And then it was something that, for me, I didn't even think about it. It just happened. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when I was bored by the conversation, I would leave and then say, hey, Tom, don't go away. Continue doing this. And with that question, I also thought of this. I said, when people commented on was my hands, they love them. They love to have that on them to do the massages. And I could imagine that if somebody didn't have a potential as a manual therapist, or somebody have these bad vibes, they put their hands on me and say, well, leave me alone. Yeah, so I imagine that could be a difference. Yeah, so my hands were loved, some people's hands were not loved. And I said, okay, I've got good hands, therapeutic hands or something like that. That's a potential. And then the third question was, what have you done for where I thought that I could do this forever? So I've traveled a lot. I worked on a cruise ship, the Queen Elizabeth II. I backpacked around the world a couple of times. Did a couple of stunts in South Africa for 2 months, traveling and moving around. That for me, I could do that for the rest of my life easily. I love that kind of movement. So I wrote that down. But also, I created a workshop into wine degustation. So how to taste wine. It was in the year 2000 also. So it was in 2000, so way before the internet was very popular. There was nothing on there at that moment. So I was looking into books and writing it down and making like this kind of concept, and I was drawing things and creating a little booklet and preparing a presentation, and all of that I really loved. I love that kind of research, looking and creating new concepts. So that became my research. And then when I gave the presentation for the first time, I was scared. I was so nervous, but I didn't stop for war, never lost my thread. And the people in the audience were saying, how many times have you done this before, Tom? And I said, this is my first time. And they said, no, that's not possible. It was so natural. I had never done this before, and for people, it was like something I've always done. So these three questions, you need to take them a little bit wider than what is actually written. And that is how I came to really define my potential. And I'm going to show you another slide here.
Sure.
So as a communicator, teacher, therapist, researcher, globetrotter, and life emotion, I needed that movement around. So these are the three questions. And this is what for me, came out of that.
And this is how you say you realized, like, purpose is not something that is just in there and it's just coming for you. I mean, you have to go and look for it. What's your purpose? And I think these three questions are something that is very helpful in order to help you to find your purpose, because as you said, purpose is not something that is just in there and it's coming for you. And don't do anything, just sit down and wait for your purpose to come over to you. That's not the way it happens, right? You have to go for it.
Yeah, for some people it does. Yeah, I can imagine that for some people it just comes naturally into their lives. For other people like myself, it doesn't. I never got into contact with my true potential. So, and that made me feel so bad. That made me feel so depressed. Mm-hmm. I was doing things, but it was like a vicious circle. I always came to the same point. I was doing something great, and then it failed. And the circle, so in the beginning, it's very long, like a very long trajectory that, of things you discover, and it's exciting, and then it's long. And then the next time, it's like a much shorter circle before you get back to where you were. And that circle became always more closer and closer and closer until there was no way out anymore. And for me, life had become completely meaningless. And if life is meaningless, why continue? If that was it, if this misery was always coming back, I just didn't want it. I just did not want to continue living life like that. To always be, in pain, in stress, in this distress. And so I wanted to give up until, I was told how to find my potential and then how to futurize it and to start living more consciously on getting the skills and learning what I needed to learn to become and evolve into my full potential. Right. What became my purpose.
And basically futurizing yourself just changed your life completely.
It did, yeah. And even that didn't have a word when I started in the year 2000, yeah. It's only later reading or looking at Gert Leonard's video and reading his book, that words combination popped up. And futurization is incorporating futures thinking into your present decisions and actions. That's what futurization stands for. And yourself, yeah, it's you. In a way, you could say it's you and ourselves, but it's in this case, it's yourself, you as an individual. Because
Right.
because that is another misconception, is that many people are waiting for others to change the world, to change their lives. It's not my fault, it's the other. It's not me, it's this condition or that condition. Yeah, I noticed that if I went and took all of that away and became responsible of my own fulfillment and happiness, health and well-being, that was really the life changer.
Exactly, exactly. And something that I also like very much of what we have talked before is that the last time we talked, you told me futures can also be very, very good for your health. And I think that's
Yes.
a very interesting concept because I haven't heard that before. How come? How is it that futures can be very good and very important for your health? I mean, I'm not only talking about physical health, but also mental health. How is it? How does it work?
Well, the world is changing. Yes. So, okay, let's take an example of the taxi driver. We know by now that more and more automated cars will come on the market.
Mhm.
Now, taxi drivers, there are some already taxis that are fully automated. So the likelihood that a taxi driver will lose his job within this and 5-10 years time is very high. Now, if you're a 30 or 40-year-old taxi driver today, uh, you should know by now that this is going to be the case, that you are going to lose your job and you need to reskill yourself. Now, will you reskill today? So when the day comes that you lose your job, that you're ready to take something else, or are you going to wait? I can guarantee when you wait that you will have a lot of stress for a long time. And stress for a long time is really bad for your health and well-being. It changes the muscular tension. So you get neck ache, backache, shoulder ache. It changes the way you think. So anxiety, depression, over a long time, you also have memory problems. It changes your immunities, so many things. So if you start implementing the ideas of futurization and say, okay, that might happen, and today I will start learning and adapting to become agile for when the day comes that I lose my job, that I have somewhere else to go to. That's the simplest example how futures thinking is good for your health and well-being. But to be honest, anything that is prevention is futures thinking. Anything you do, so movement. So we know that we have to move. We know we have to sleep. We know we have to relax now and then to recuperate and regenerate. That we have enough minerals and vitamins, and that we get enough sunlight. Brushing your teeth. Why do you brush your teeth? It's not just because it gives you a fresh breath. No, brushing your teeth is because you want to prevent your teeth from going bad in some time in the future. You don't know when. So, yeah, so it's for the future. So you are doing something already that is futures oriented to prevent something that you anticipate if you don't do it is going to happen. So that is what I mean, that the future and futurist thinking or futures thinking or anticipation, forecasting, whatever, that it has notions of health and well-being. And this is another one, big one. Climate change. If we can, just project, 10 years, 20, 30 years from now, by the year 2050, it is predicted that some areas, coastal areas of Mexico will be underwater. Seychelles might be gone. Here you have Venice that will be more underwater. Well, how is that going to make you feel? If you don't live there, you have to move house, so stress, everything that is around that is a big factor for your health and well-being. So if you still want to live in that coastal area, and this is predicted, if we don't change our attitude today, this is going to happen by the year 2050, and some people will not be there anymore, but other people will, or your children will be there, or your children's children will be there. So are you going to be a good ancestor to them and say, from today, I'm going to, into my decisions, my choice, and into action, I'm going to implement that we won't get there, that we can prevent that, climate rises, or the temperature rises with more than 1.5 degrees in the next 50 to 100 years. We can't wait 10, 15, or 20 years before we start. And that is also health and well-being, no? Climate change has an immediate effect on our health and well-being. So the more that I'm looking at it, the more I'm looking to these futures or forward-thinking concepts, the more that I see how this is so important for our health and well-being, but from a very close encounter, as I described with the taxi driver or brushing your teeth, to a more wider global societal overview perspective. And we all have an impact on that. You, me, all the people that are watching this. We are the future. And the future, the past is gone, but the future is still in the shaping. How do you want to shape it? It depends on every decision, every choice, and every action we make forward today.
That's very interesting, because I think, in a way, what you say is that we all are futurists most of the time without even knowing it, like it happened to you before. And just as you said, like just brushing our teeth, for instance, that's something very common. We do it daily, and we are not realizing that we are working with futures in that moment.
Yeah, and there is also, at the moment, for example, the practice of mindfulness, being in the present, the power of now, is so popular. Yeah, but that doesn't mean to forget the future, right? You can brush your teeth mindfully, to be in that present moment, to really experience that. Yes, great, but why do you do it? That's anticipatory, that's prevention, that's future oriented, right?
Right.
So we may not stick into this now, here, the present, too much, and just don't look forward, because we will run against the wall of change, and then like the taxi driver, the taxi driver that just been in the present, has been looking forward or ahead. And this is just an example. He will be faced at one moment with losing his job. Big anxiety moment. Breathing and brushing your teeth mindfully will not change that. Yeah, you will not be able to wipe it away. It will be a problem for a long time. And this is, so mindfulness is a great approach, but don't forget that it is only an approach, a mindset for something very specific, but don't lose the overview.
Of course. Yeah. And I want to talk about this a little further because, well, you know, I'm a Mexican. I live here in Latin America. And I think we don't work with anticipation and with futures. Like we live for the day, basically. For a lot of people, it's like that. Sometimes because a lot of people cannot think about the future. I mean, they are trying to survive every day uh, of their own lives. But I think it's very important to know what's your opinion. How do you see things from your side when you talk about how do we work with futures here in Latin America? Like, what's your concept?
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to know your opinion about it.
Okay, I'm going to answer that. But permit me, there is something beeping in my cabinet, and I'm going to switch that off first.
Sure.
Okay, just
No
a
problem.
moment.
Sure.
Yeah, so you're really asking a cultural question. It's about, so on my Mauricio, on my travels, I've been to Mexico, or at least when I was working on the cruise ship. So I went to Acapulco, for example, and also to the more West Coast, diving, because I used to dive when I was on a cruise ship. And
you were in some other
I don't know
countries,
much
right?
about.
I think you were in Central America, in Panama, and some other countries, right?
Let's say that on the cruise ship, you go about everywhere. So, you know, from to New Zealand, Japan, India, Singapore, Taiwan, you know, Panama Canal, I've been there as well, and to some beautiful islands. So been around the world about 3 times. So haven't visited every country, of course, you know, but seen a lot of the world. And I don't know much about South America and Mexico and so forth, but what we think that South Americans are like is mañana.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know, we'll do that tomorrow. And that's not a futurist way of thinking.
Exactly, that's what I wanted to say.
It's not that tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, right. That's not that tomorrow. You know, it's like they're postponing tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why worry about it? You know, living that moment now. You know, live here and now. Tomorrow, it's not important. But we've just seen, and I've just said how important tomorrow is. If you always to push away tomorrow and not think about climate change or about losing your job to technology, well, that's your own downfall, isn't it? You know, life change is changing exponentially. It's really, really fast and getting faster and faster. You know, you've been keeping up until now, but if you keep up this mañana stuff, you will be completely phased out. You know, you will not be able to maybe to get to the level that is needed to follow this fast changing world. This is the risk. This is the challenge, I think, that I might think you have culturally, in that it is very difficult to change that. But before you change it, start to understand it. You know, it's like what I say with stress management. If you don't understand what needs to happen and why, it doesn't, you just give exercises and then this exercise and that, but you don't know why. It's not going to last very long. So it's about understanding the importance of thinking about the future to your personal health and well-being, to your family, what it means for your children, for your children's children, and to to really feel it, get to feel that the importance of futurization, of implementing futures thinking into your present decisions and actions, and not push it away until tomorrow.
Right. And I think this is happening even, of course, with our governments in all the region. Like, I don't know if it just going back to your book and applying it to this that we are speaking now, it's like we are lacking purpose as countries and as regions, as the whole region, as the whole Latin American region. I sometimes wonder if this is not a problem of just coming up with a purpose. What do we want for our future? And I think we are not making ourselves that question. Like, what do we want as countries, as individual countries, but what do we want as a whole region? And I don't think we are doing that job. We are not thinking about our purpose, our future purpose. What do you think about that?
That could be very much so. And I think very few countries probably have that question, but others are more culturally following the trends and starting to look a little bit more ahead with narratives of 2050 or 2100. So creating the narrative of possibilities, and I'm starting to see from what can we do to prevent or to have the narrative that we want. And as a government, it's very important to start creating indeed these narratives, the scenarios of the preferable, the possible, the probable futures as a nation and as a continent, to then apply their laws and to have then the community or the citizens to really follow you because you have a vision of something that you want to create. And it's also important to speak to the to the citizens themselves. It's like participatory leadership, because if it only is going to come from the policymakers, often policymakers live in another dimension, as we say. They're not always in touch with the reality. So you need to see policy together with reality. You need to bring these two together. But at the end of the day, ask ourselves, how, what do we want to be as ancestors for future generations?
Right.
We want, we all are born, I believe, with a profound wish that when we leave this earth, to leave it a better place. What does that mean, to leave Earth a better place? I do believe that it's a place that is evolving, getting, that it's more fulfilling, sustainable, and that it is good for mankind. And that we will be more and more digitized,
Mm-hmm.
but we can do so much. We are so ingenious. We have so much potential that there is a way to work together. There is a way that we can fulfill more our true potential into this world. And that climate is one of the priorities, because without a sustainable climate, of course, that's a global thing, is nothing is going to really be as easy or easier, because we need the climate to have to create the crops. We need the climate to feel well. When we have, when the water is up to our knees, we won't feel very well. When it's always too hot or too cold, or we have these continuous storms, we will always be in a stress response. So climate is a very basic human need that we need to take care of. Stress is when demands outweigh your resources. Now, that is as much true on an individual level, on a company level, and on a global level. When we demand too much resources from the earth gets stressed.
Mm-hmm.
The consequences, climate change. Consequences, more tornadoes, more of these bad weather situations, floods, the more that the radiation of the sun will affect us, and it goes on and on. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. The earth is a body as a planet, just like our body. When you put too much demands on the earth, it will get stressed. Just like if you put too many demands on your body, on our body, we get stressed. And the consequences are internal climate change. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
So you get more sick, you get more, you get many more diseases, you get, more prone for diseases of viruses, for example, definitely now. So mind your body before your body reminds you. That is as much true for yourself as for the earth. Mind earth as a body before it reminds you. We're a bit late already. Even for us, we're a bit late, because how many percentage of the population is stressed and rising due to this the pandemic at the moment. At least we're seeing increasing burnouts, depression, and people that needed to be taken in for mental health issues, and so for back pain, neck pain. I see it in my practice going up as well. So we need to really start taking more care of ourselves, but not ourself is then myself and others. Yeah, it's because just taking care of me, it's not going to work. We're on this together.
Yeah, I think it's going from the individual to the collective, and I think that's a very important thing that you say. Tom, we're almost finishing this talk today, and again, thank you very much. But I know you're writing a new book right now. You're almost finishing, right? So I would love that you just please tell us a little bit more about it. What's your new book about, and why did you
So
decide to write it?
um, it was always in the making, because when the first draft of my first book, Futurize Yourself, Design Your Life on Purpose, when uh, the coach, astrologer coach, read it for the first time, the first draft, because I was explaining her method, and I was describing her in a certain way, and I wanted her permission. She wrote back to me and said, Tom, this is 3 books. You need to split it up. So already from the beginning, from the first draft, there was already a kind of 3 books present. And so I took chapter 1, and the first book is actually chapter one, but then making it a bit broader and deepening the story, and also putting quotes from my diaries and things like that. So it was always planned to create that. Of course, what happens is that I've evolved, I've got new theories, I've got deepened myself much more into this futurization concept. So Futurize Yourself, Tome 2, this is the second book. The content is really about evolving on purpose, because people are asking, okay, now you designed your life on purpose, you know where you want to go to, but how did you make it happen? How did you know that this was the right choice? And because I had this imagination from, I'm going to be a therapist who developed his own approach, written a book about it, and he's asked around the world to give presentation and workshop. But I was depressed, so I just put it out there, and I thought that I could imagine that could give me a preferable future. And it did. I was lucky, maybe, but no. I think it was, that evolving on purpose is asking the right questions again on the journey to learn from your mistakes to go forward, and then to start not only understanding certain Kierkegaard said something like, life must be understood backwards but lived forward. But it's, I think, understood backwards and lived forwards until I started to understand it forward also, and combined understanding backward with understanding forward. Because once you're into this futurization, the future is unknown, but you have scenarios and you have a way of knowing what to do when things come in front of you, and you already can imagine that which decision goes or brings you into what direction. So you're starting to know a little bit more the future. Yeah? It's like a holiday. You plan a holiday, you book a holiday, you got your tickets, you know where you're going. How sure are you that that holiday is going to happen? Well, the likelihood is very high. So you know what your future is going to bring. It might still be canceled for some reason or another, but the likelihood that it's going to happen is most of the time like 80 or 90%, if not 95. So I know that that holiday is going to come. So I know my future. Right. So I understand it. So I'm starting to understand it forward as well. So, but then I created another concept. I like concept. It's the futures effect. And the futures effect comes in a way from the overview effect. The overview effect is what astronauts get when they look onto the Earth and see the Earth in its cosmic perspective. It changes, it's a mind shift for them. They see this precarious Earth, this ball within the universe, in the blackness of the universe, and they say, wow, I feel so connected to it, and this is so precarious. There is only this small, thin layer that is protecting us from this solar radiation and so forth. So they become much more conscious when they come back about their decisions, their choices, and their actions, and to making the world a better place. Now, the futures effect is the overview effect, but more from a terrestrial point of view, is that when we start thinking about the future, the effect it has, so that's the benefits for our health and well-being, thanks to futures thinking. Because at the end of the day, I believe we want to create great futures, and GREAT is an acronym for good future, resilient future, evolving future, actionable future, and transcendent future. So we transcend ourselves, and and also transcendence into being a good ancestor. So my book is divided into these 5 chapters: good future, resilient future, evolving, actionable, and transcendent future. What that means for me, what that means with my experience when I talk to my patients, so patient examples, how that influences them, and what they're telling me when they're thinking more about the future and about their health and well-being and so forth from a future perspective. So it's less of a biography as the first one. So this is more of an exploration of ideas with samples of my past and samples of patient experiences.
Great, great. When is it gonna be ready?
So the first draft is halfway. So I'm at about 21,000 words at the moment. So let's hope by the end of this year that it's in print, or at least in digital print.
Great. Just let us know
so that it will be published, because I think it will go very, if I keep on doing this at the rate I'm doing now, I hope it will be finished the first draft will be finished by the end of June.
Great, great. We hope it's ready very soon so we can take a look at it. I think it's going to be great, as it was your first one, Futurize Yourself. I think it's a great book, really. I have read it twice now, and I think it's you will be very interested on it. You will be very you won't be able to take out the book once you start, because it's a very interesting story. And again, I think it's very brave on you to talk about what happened to you and your personal story, because I think it's very intimate, the book itself. And I really appreciate that you can share and you want to share your personal story with the rest of the people. And well, just before we finish, I want to ask you if there's something else that you want to say, something that I didn't ask, something you want to say to everybody here in Latin America listening to this interview. What would you like to say to them?
I really would like to say to them to become invested in the future. It's very important that you and we all start with that today, and that we start to be mindful of our decisions, our choices, and our actions. Because we can shape the future and the future of generations to come in a positive way. But if we start denying or not doing, not taking the actions or the decisions, I do believe that the future will not be so bright as we hope it to be. And today, we have everything in our power to make a great future from happening. But it will depend not only on governments, companies, but it will very much depend on the larger population, on people like you and me. And I always think my journey has been very interesting. I'm not an educated person. I'm born in a very normal family. And I'm able to make a difference. I believe we all can make a difference from the place where we are. But it needs to start with somewhere with a vision of how do we want to feel, for example? How do we want to evolve? Where do we want to evolve into? And then doing it on purpose, because it's not going to happen by itself.
Great.
If people want to know more about me, futurizeyourself.com is the website, but find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place. And there you can also ask me questions. So just go to my profile or your profile. We are linked, so you can find me easily on the LinkedIn profile.
Okay, yeah, I will I will put your LinkedIn profile then in here so people can see it and they can contact you. Thank you very much for saying that, and thank you very much, Tom, for this interview. Again, this was the first one that we are doing, and you were a big one to start this. And I think it's very important that we can be kind of a bridge here at the Universidad del Futuro, a bridge of knowledge, knowledge that is being done everywhere in the world. Uh, what you say, your book, all that you have done is very important for people this side of the world to know about that. And I think this is a good way to start. I really appreciate the fact that you gave us your time. Thank you very much, Tom. And I know, and I'm sure this is not going to be the last one. We will have a new one very soon. I hope when you have your new book ready, that you can talk to us again. And thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone. And we'll see you very soon.
Thank you very much, Mauricio, for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. See you soon. Bye bye.